Well, I think moderately it's been successful in the sense that it's gotten all the nations to start talking about it and trying to figure out ways that they can reduce the amount of carbon that they're using. Now, we may have some disagreements on how we get there, but in that sense, I think it's been somewhat successful. As trying to create a scorecard between nations, I don't know that it's done so well because the rules were set up really were disadvantageous towards the United States, and um, and in fairness, they were advantageous for China because China was allowed to continue increasing its carbon output until 2030, which puts the U.S. at a real disadvantage.
I think climate change is a threat to all Americans' health, their prosperity, and their security. So we're already feeling the impacts of more frequent and severe extreme weather events, which are causing increases in heat-related illnesses and death, costlier storm damages, longer droughts that reduce agricultural productivity, and strained water systems, and larger, more severe wildfires that threaten homes and degrade air quality. But I believe climate change is a global challenge, and it won't be solved without global cooperation. So the Paris Agreement was historic. After many years of trying, the international community finally came together to agree to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions in line with what science tells us is necessary.
The United States is working hard to get its carbon footprint reduced, but there's a lot of things in this agreement that really are, as I said, disadvantageous to the United States. And unfortunately, the agreement, like a lot of other agreements, treats China as if it's still a developing nation, when in fact they have the second strongest economy in the world and are a major economic power in the world. And it fails to recognize that. And so China's, basically getting to clean our clocks competitively. And there's some other nations, pluses and minuses, but overall it's contributed to the conversation. But that doesn't mean that we need to be a member of it to continue working towards goals that are for the betterment of the world.
Certainly, I strongly oppose President Trump's decision to withdraw from the agreement. I believe that to be a short-sighted decision, and it reduces America's standing in the world. With the U.S. withdrawal, we'll be joining Iran and Libya, and I believe Yemen, as the only nation states not participating in the agreement. That isn't exactly the company we should be keeping. We have to be a leader. We have to show a commitment as a world leader. And so it reneges on our commitment to the global community to fulfill our responsibility as a major economy and a major emitter of carbon pollution to reduce our emissions. And if we pull back from the domestic climate commitments, we will be giving up tremendous economic opportunities, ceding a leadership on clean energy technologies and the jobs they create to China and other nations. And really is a call to order to lead by example.
I don't think it will. If people are really working towards it, they're going to continue to work towards working on the carbon output. I don't think that it will have any real impact. The first break and the first Trump administration didn't have any significant damage to what we were trying to do and what people are trying to do in the world of making the environment better for all.
I think our country leads the world in clean energy innovation, and we are increasingly manufacturing clean energy technologies. And I think if we want to grow jobs, significant jobs that can contribute to a sounder future, a better stewardship of the planet, that's going to provide a dent into that agenda. So I think it has a direct impact, certainly on us as a nation, but then a ripple effect into the other member nations that will utilize our technology because of our strength of our economy, our national intellect, and some of the best R&D being done. We could be a great contributor, not only for our betterment, but for all these other nations, especially the smaller nations that are part of that agreement.
Well, what's interesting is that most of the nations aren't meeting those requirements now. So it doesn't really have anything to do with the U.S. pulling out. I think it's going to be difficult for a lot of the nations to meet those goals. And I don't think a lot of them are going to make it. The U.S. is close. We're closing in, and we've reduced our carbon footprint more than any other country in the world, while the Chinese have increased theirs. So I do think that we can continue to work that way, but it's all going to depend on whether or not the nations want to do something. And of course, part of what we have to do, and this may get to some of the other issues y'all want to get into, I believe that what we have to do is we have to figure out better technologies as opposed to just continually using the old technologies for fossil fuel. Look, if you're India and even China, you're going to continue to use the fossil fuels. India has a lot of coal. It's not the cleanest of coal. What we need to be working for, if we really want to make the environment better and do so in a way that also allows countries to have economic growth, we've got to find better ways to use our coal, our natural gas, and our oil, because those are abundant sources out there. And a lot of nations, our nation, China, India, developing nations, they have some energy resources that are carbon-based. And to ignore that you're going to use those is illogical.
Perhaps the agreement isn't perfect. It relies on each country making their own commitments, but it's a strong foundation upon which we can galvanize action at the nation's level and at the individual states level. So, I think it's good to have just about everybody abiding by this and having a huge universal block that can address the needs of our climate response.
It's not like leaving the Paris Agreement suddenly means we're not going to talk to France or to the EU or to any of the countries that we already have diplomatic relationships with and that we're talking with. We're going to continue to talk. And as I said, if we will unleash the American spirit of innovation, and we have lots of companies already doing these things, to make our fossil fuels more efficient and to reduce our carbon footprint. And I can give you several examples if you want them. But if we do that, then we can sell that technology, or if we want to do as a part of foreign policy, give that technology to other countries. And that's part of how you do diplomacy.
I expect even if our federal government gives up its seat at the international table, which is a terrible message to echo, there will be plenty of American voices that step into that leadership vacuum within Congress. I know I will continue to advocate for State Department funding that promotes global sustainability, as well as policies that will allow the United States to continue to be the world leader in clean energy technology research, certainly in development, and also in manufacturing and deployment.
We were out of the Paris agreements previously. We continue to work on reaching a better world, making it better. We've reduced our carbon footprint more than any other nation in the world. We're going to continue to do that, but we can do it in maybe ways that don't necessarily fit the ideal that the Paris Accords might have. But the key is to continue to try to make the environment better. I think that's great. We can do it a lot of different ways. The U.S. will continue to go that direction, whether we're in the Paris Accords or we're not.
While we're failing a little short of our goals at the moment, the actions by President Trump are seriously threatening to widen this gap between our emissions trajectory and our climate targets. So that is why it is critical that any efforts to repeal or undermine the IRA are being opposed in Congress. I am leading efforts in many sectors here to make certain that we don't claw back that money, especially if you're going to take those savings, as you don't invest them in clean energy and climate, and put them into tax cuts for the very wealthy or corporations that pay no taxes or not their fair share.